So, last time, we covered how utilitarianism is applied in real life, and now we will bring together virtue ethics, deontology, and utilitarianism to explore what happens when moral theories conflict, a situation that occurs frequently in real life. We'll examine real-world dilemmas where no single theory gives a clear answer. Now, we'll also explore what happens when these theories conflict, when doing the right thing according to one theory means doing the wrong thing according to another. We'll look at real-world dilemmas and ask which theory is the most compelling, and consider, can we ever resolve these conflicts? So, let's begin with a classic example. The trolley problem. We've talked about this before, but if you recall the trolley problem itself, a runaway trolley will kill 5 people unless you pull a lever, diverting it to a track where it will kill 1 person. Now, let's analyze it from 3 ethical perspectives. Utilitarianism will pull the lever. The consequences matter most. 1 death is better than 5. Net happiness will increase, so the conclusion is to pull the lever. Deontology. Don't pull the lever. You must never kill an innocent person, even to save others. Pulling the lever makes you an active participant in killing. You have a duty not to harm, so their conclusion is to not pull the lever. Virtue ethics would ask, what would a virtuous person do? This theory doesn't ask what action is right, but instead asks how a person should act. A courageous person might pull the lever to save lives, a compassionate person might pull the lever to prevent suffering, and a just person might refuse, because it's wrong to kill 1 to save 5. But what if the 1 person is a close friend? Then empathy and loyalty come into play. So the conclusion is, the virtue ethicist might say it depends on the situation and character of the person. Now, conflict number 1. Duty versus consequences. The lying doctor. Here's the scenario. A doctor is asked by a patient's family, "Is my loved one going to die?" The patient has a terminal illness, but the doctor knows that telling the truth will cause severe emotional distress and accelerate the patient's decline. So they have 2 options. To tell the truth, being honest and transparent, or lie to protect the patient's well-being. Going through our ideologies, deontology would tell the truth. Honesty is a moral duty. Lying is wrong even if it leads to good outcomes. And the patients have the right to know. Utilitarianism will lie, or at least withhold the truth. Truth-telling causes suffering. Withholding the truth reduces pain. Overall happiness increases. And in conclusion, you should lie to protect the patient. In virtue ethics, you would ask, what would a compassionate, wise person do? A compassionate person might soften the truth. A wise person might consider the patient's values. And an honest person might tell the truth, but with care. The conflicts here would be deontology says never lie. Utilitarianism says lying is justified if it reduces suffering, while virtue ethics says it depends on the person and the situation. This shows that no single theory provides a clear answer. Let's look at conflict number 2. Character versus consequences, the whistleblower. And here's the scenario. A software engineer discovers that her company is selling user data to advertisers without consent, so she reports it to the press. There's two options. Either 1, you stay silent to protect your job and avoid conflict, or 2, you blow the whistle, but you protect users, but you risk your career. Deontology would say, blow the whistle. Truth-telling is a duty. Protecting privacy is a moral obligation, and you must act according to your principles. Utilitarianism would say, blow the whistle. Millions of users are harmed by data misuse. Exposing the truth prevents future harm. Overall well-being will increase, so the conclusion in the end is to whistleblow. Virtue ethics would ask, what would a brave, honest, and responsible person do? A brave person speaks out, an honest person tells the truth, and a responsible person protects others. But what if the whistleblower is fired, blacklisted, or sued? Then personal sacrifice becomes part of the moral calculus. The conflict here is, deontology says you must do your duty. Utilitarianism says the greater good justifies the cost. And virtue ethics says, be the kind of person who acts with courage and integrity. But what if the whistleblower is wrong? Then responsibility and wisdom come into play. Conflict number 3. Rights versus happiness, the death penalty. The scenario is a country is debating whether to abolish the death penalty. Currently, it's used for the most serious crimes. Keep the death penalty, offering deterrence and justice for victims, or abolish it, for moral consistency and to avoid the risk of wrongful execution. Deontology would say that killing is wrong, even if justified. Human dignity must be protected, and capital punishment violates a fundamental right. Thus, they would argue to abolish the death penalty. Utilitarianism. Evidence shows no strong deterrence. The risk of wrongful execution is real. Life imprisonment is cheaper and just as effective. Thus, in conclusion, they would abolish it. A virtue ethicist would ask, what would a just and compassionate person do? A just person seeks fair punishment. A compassionate person seeks restorative justice. And a wise person considers long-term consequences. But what if the crime was extremely violent? Then retribution and moral outrage come into play. So the conflict here is a deontologist says, never kill. Utilitarianism says, abolish it for the greater well-being. And virtue ethics say, act with justice and compassion. So why do these conflicts matter? These conflicts show that moral reasoning is not always clear-cut. No single theory provides a clear moral guide, and real-life ethics often requires balancing duty, consequences, and character. But does this mean that all theories are wrong? No. Each theory captures an important moral insight. Virtue ethics reminds us to cultivate good character. Deontology reminds us of duty and human rights. Utilitarianism reminds us to consider the consequences. The challenge is to integrate these insights into a coherent moral life. So, can we resolve these conflicts? Some philosophers argue that no single theory is sufficient. We need a pluralistic approach. So we've got a few of those. A. Moral pluralism. There are multiple moral principles, such as justice, compassion, honesty. No one principle always wins, and we must balance them in context. B. Moral pragmatism. The best moral decision depends on the situation. We should use all three theories as tools. The goal is not just to follow rules, but to achieve the best outcome. And C. Moral development. As we grow, we learn to integrate different ethical perspectives. We move from rule following, deontology, to consequence thinking, utilitarianism, to character building, virtue ethics. So, as you can see, no theory is perfect. Each has strengths and weaknesses. Real world dilemmas often involve trade offs, and moral reasoning requires critical thinking, empathy, and moral courage.